wanna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler podcast. I'm so glad you're here. As we get started, I do want to remind you that this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice in any field, including legal, medical, financial, or mental health. Please consult a qualified professional for advice tailored specifically to you. When I begin this podcast every week with the phrase, "I'm so glad you're here," I truly mean it. I am amazed and so appreciative when I check my analytics after releasing the latest episode and see that you're here again, spending your valuable time with me. I had it in my heart to start a podcast for a while, but when I finally took the leap, I honestly imagined that I would have about 10 listeners, each of whom knows me personally, and would tune in just to offer a show of support for my latest endeavor. My friends are awesome like that and would definitely do that for me. But in addition to those whom I've known for years, I've gained so many new friends through this podcast. If you'll indulge me, I want to take just a moment to give a shout out to the states where I see all of my friends and fellow Gen X jugglers listening from consistently. We have Texas, of course, New York, New Mexico, Virginia, Florida, California, Washington, Alabama, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, and Tennessee. I absolutely appreciate everyone who stops by to check out the podcast, but those of you who listen in these states have started to feel like family. I want you to know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I am humbled by how you keep joining me each week. From the bottom of my heart, you make this so fun and make the hours I invest in producing this podcast worth it. So thank you. I am currently looking at ways to make the Gen X Juggler podcast more interactive. I would love to get to know you better and hear from you more. And if there are topics you would like for me to cover, please reach out and let me know. You can always email me at genxjuggler@gmail.com. I would also really appreciate it if you would help spread the word about the podcast. Your word of mouth is incredibly valuable for the growth and reach of this podcast. Please share it with a friend, share it on your social media, and interact with the podcast through likes, comments, and reviews. I do have to say that 5-star reviews really help increase the visibility of the podcast. So if you feel like I've earned a 5-star review, would you please leave it so even more potential Gen X jugglers can know we're here? Once again, whether we've been friends for years or you're a new friend who just stumbled upon the podcast, thank you so much for joining me on this ride and for being a Gen X juggler. And speaking of juggling, this week was incredibly busy. How unusual, right? At this stage of the game, it feels like there's just no way to avoid the busy. There's always something that requires our attention, and let's not forget about the mental labor that's rarely ever talked about. Do you find that thinking about all that you have to do and keeping everything straight in your head feels like as much work as getting out there and physically doing it? I certainly do. I know it can wear on us. It's so important that we not let ourselves get bogged down in the demands of our busy lives. But how do we refill our tanks when we feel like we're running on fumes? I know one way. To quote a Bette Midler song from the 70s, you gotta have friends. I recently read an article from the Mayo Clinic entitled "Friendships: Enrich Your Life and Improve Your Health." This article shares some valuable tips when it comes to making and keeping quality friendships. I'll share some of those tips with you a little later on in the podcast. Even though in theory, I think we know that friendships absolutely enrich our lives, I acknowledge that it can be difficult to nurture and prioritize our friendships when life places so many other priorities and duties in our paths. This can definitely cause spending quality time with friends to get put on the back burner, with a lot of saying, we should get together, but ultimately letting our busy schedules and the fact that when we do find time for a break, we just want to take a nap, get in the way of actually following through. Admittedly, I am guilty of this. I always think plans sound so fun when we make them on Monday, but when Friday rolls around, I kind of secretly hope that maybe someone can't make it, so I can have an evening to veg on the couch, eat ice cream, and watch HGTV in my favorite ratty sweats. Just thinking about that right now makes me so happy. But I have noticed that when I, even begrudgingly, follow through and keep the plans I've made, I am always glad I did. Spending time with friends, laughing, talking about life, and gaining new perspectives by hearing thoughts from someone who is not me is always good for my soul. About a year and a half ago, we moved to a completely different part of Texas than where I grew up. This put me in a position to meet more new people than I had in a while. Making new friends as an adult is not as easy as it was when we were kids, and honestly, it's not in my nature to put myself out there. However, after enduring the requisite uncomfortable get to know you moments, I now have some pretty awesome new friends who will certainly become longtime friends as the years go by. I think having friends who live close enough to pop by ever so often is important. Even on days when my to-do list is a mile long, I find that if a friend happens to stop by and I just take a little time to stop and visit, somehow I have even more energy to take care of the business of my day. It's funny how that works. In addition to these new friends, I'm very blessed to have a network of longtime friends, many of whom were childhood friends. Notice how I've avoided saying old friends. I think that word hits a bit differently at our age. But there is such a blessing in staying connected to or reconnecting with lifelong friends, those who knew you when and know you best. I have actually reconnected with a few childhood friends in recent years. We had drifted apart, as you do when you leave your hometown to start new lives in new places. Sometimes years would go by between conversations, but it was always easy when we did get to catch up. We no longer had the useful congregating every day at school, which kept us apprised of one another's daily goings on, so it was nice to have those little moments of reacquaintance. How are you? How are the kids? How are the parents? What are you up to now? You know, the usual, but valuable nonetheless. I think there comes a time when we look up from our busy lives and think, where'd everybody go? I tell my kids these fun stories from childhood which involve all these great people, but I hardly see any of them anymore. Thanks to social media, it's a lot easier to do something about that these days. In the last year, I've had more dear friends reach out than ever before. It's been great. We've created text groups where we can chat every day and keep up with each other, almost as easily as when we shared the hallway at school all those years ago. And yes, our school had one hallway in the junior high and high school wing. As I have told you before, our country school was very small. The difference between then and now is that we've lived a little. We each have a lot of wonderful and not so wonderful moments under our belts. We understand even more the importance of being there for each other and nurturing these adult friendships. Why we drifted doesn't matter nearly as much as the fact that we are in each other's lives now. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I have a terrible habit of when I'm going through the most difficult times in life, I tend to withdraw from human interaction. When I know I'm not doing well or I think I'll be a downer to someone's day, I just keep it to myself. I was actually driving down a busy road the other day and saw a turtle on the shoulder who had retreated into its shell for fear of the traffic that was zooming by. The turtle probably felt a lot safer in that shell, but the truth is, it was still in danger. The only way it was going to be safe is if it came out of its shell and moved toward a safer place. In noticing this, I realized that I can be just like that turtle. I'll go into my shell in the midst of trouble and chaos instead of moving to the safety of my friends to help me navigate those times. Recently, I've begun to embrace the vulnerability of going to my friends when I need help, or to talk, or just to sort a few things out. And likewise, making sure they know that I am always available when they need to do the same. It's definitely easier for me to be vulnerable with longtime friends. They knew me back when, so I don't have to spend time on background information. They already know. They've seen me at my best, my worst, and in between, so there's no fear of judgment. If they advise me, or even admonish me or hold me accountable for something I've done, I know that it's motivated by love and wanting what's best for me. There's so much security in that. Also, I've noticed that I tend to laugh the hardest with people I've known for a really long time. Even those with whom I've recently reconnected, we still spent those carefree childhood years together. We have inside jokes and a shared sense of humor from way back when, due largely in part to being avid fans of Saturday Night Live from the mid-80s into the early 90s. Our jokes never require explanation, and most of the time, we're lucky to make it to the end of the joke before we crack up because we already know what's coming. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Laughter feeds the soul. And Sherry, if you're listening, I still remember back in high school when you told me that laughing is the only way to exercise your liver. I'm pleased to report that my liver is doing great, and it will be even better the next time we get to catch up, which I hope is very soon. So, friendships, both new and not so new, should definitely be included in the Gen X Midlife Survival Guide. I promised you I'd share some tips from that article I read, and here they are. When it comes to making new friends, which we have acknowledged isn't always easy, we have to put in the effort. If you'd like to meet like-minded people who share your interests, consider taking an in-person course that you're interested in, or go to events in your community. You could even try joining a church or volunteering for an organization that shares your values. Or maybe take a walk, get out and meet your neighbors. If you're nervous about meeting new people, the exercise of a walk can actually calm your nerves. You can even try deep breathing exercises. I definitely get nervous when meeting new people and have found that controlled breathing really helps. But this may be the toughest part. Are you ready? To build new friendships, we have to give and accept invitations. Put yourself out there and say, hey, want to go shopping or grab a cup of coffee? And when you're invited to do something, just say yes, and then follow through. No matter how comfy your couch and sweats are or which super interesting couple is going to be on that night's episode of House Hunters. That's what DVRs and reruns are for. Can you hear me preaching to myself just a little bit there? And as I mentioned before, lifelong friends add a special value to our lives. Even though we may not live near each other, we can nurture those friendships by checking in regularly and letting our friends know we're here for them when they need us. If you've lost touch with a friend whom you still think about often, I can tell you it is fun to reconnect. You can do this through social media to begin with, but taking it to a more personal space, such as phone calls, texts, FaceTimes, and even making time to meet up ever so often, is definitely beneficial. According to the Mayo Clinic, social media is not the best place to bond and nurture lasting relationships. It's good for finding and making that initial connection with friends whom you may have lost touch with, but more personal connections help to fuel the fire of lasting friendships. I hope you have friendships that give you peace and bring you joy, and that if you are looking to make new friends, you find just the right people to make your life that much richer. If you'd like to read that article I referenced for yourself, you'll find the link in the description. Speaking of friends, I'm sure you'll remember Christy, who shared her cancer journey with us in episode 10. She is in need of our prayers. Christy's having some concerning pain, and they're not sure where it's coming from. She said the pain does not necessarily mean that her cancer is returning, but since prayer never hurts, will you please join me in praying she receives the answers she needs as her doctors look for the source of her pain, and for physical comfort and spiritual peace while she waits for those answers? Christy, please know that your fellow Gen X jugglers are praying for you and sending you all our love. That does it for this episode of the Gen X Juggler podcast. I look forward to our next time together. Until then, friend, let's keep on juggling.
Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.